Episode 7. There comes a point where a place begins to lose what it was. Not all at once, but gradually, quietly, until one day it's something else entirely. At the start of this week, the ground here still feels low, open, familiar, almost untouched. But that doesn't last. Load after load begins to arrive. A constant flow, building, compacting, rising, until the surface you're looking at is no longer the same one that was here just days before. By the end of the week, the change isn't subtle anymore. Where there was once very little, there is now depth, height, nearly a metre of material laid down, redefining the shape of the site. And it's not just the ground that's shifting. The early signs of a temporary presence begin to disappear. Cabins are removed. The site tightens, settles, becomes more established, less like a beginning, and more like something that's here to stay. Along the river's edge, life still moves as it always has, briefly brushing up against a landscape that's steadily being transformed. And that contrast between what was and what's coming feels heavier this week, because now you can see it and you can measure it. As you can see, a new piece of heavy machinery has arrived on site, a Caterpillar D4 dozer, now working into the build sequence. The process follows a set routine. First, the formation is prepared, and the underlying material is placed and shaped to create a consistent base for the works. After that, a layer of Terram geotextile is installed, a separation membrane designed to prevent material mixing and help maintain stability within the build-up layers. Once that's in position, the stone build-up begins. Different graded stone materials are being used across the site. A coarser initial layer followed by a finer, more compactable Type 1 aggregate. Each layer has its role, the first to establish structure, the second to tighten, lock, and bring everything up towards finished formation level. It's repetitive work, but every pass changes the site. Each layer adds height, strength and permanence where there was previously open ground, and slowly the structure starts to take shape. These were the original site cabins installed at the very start of works back in January, forming the first operational base on site. Here, they're now fully packed up, with a high-ab lorry on standby for removal. Operations have since moved to the main compound, now complete, and this original access point is now closed off. A tipper lorry now enters the site via the newly completed access route, crossing the finished bog-mat bridge and into the main working area. This link now provides direct, unrestricted access through to the piling platform, significantly improving movement across this part of the scheme and allowing plant and materials to flow freely into the core work zones. This section is now fully connected into the wider site layout, reflecting how the infrastructure has developed from early enabling works into a fully operational construction corridor. Running alongside the works, the River Stour continues to follow the edge of the site, unchanged by the activity taking place nearby. Even here, within an active construction environment, there's still a sense of contrast, with two swans seen on the river adjacent to the works, moving calmly through the water beside the ongoing development. Across this phase of the works, stone deliveries are arriving in defined bursts throughout the day, rather than a continuous flow. Typically, several tippers will come in back to back, followed by short gaps before the next set of movements. Each vehicle is generally carrying in the region of around 20 tons of aggregate, depending on load and specification. When you scale that across a working day, a figure of roughly 45 to 50 deliveries would equate to something in the order of 900 to 1,000 tons of material moving into site over that period. From what's visible on site, this delivery pattern creates a clear rhythm to the logistics, coordinated runs feeding directly into the active work front, then pausing before the next wave arrives. From observation, there are moments where demand on the ground appears to be moving slightly ahead of supply, with prepared areas ready to receive material between delivery cycles. That results in a stop-start flow rather than a constant input through the day. Overall, it reflects the typical nature of large infrastructure logistics, high-volume material movement, carefully scheduled haulage, and delivery timing dictated by access, processing capacity, and on-site progression rates. This area now shows the cleared access zone, where the original site cabins have all been removed following their initial use at the start of the works. What was once the first operational base on site has now been fully demobilised, leaving the space open as the project transitions into its next phase of construction activity. This is the south abutment area, where ground levels are currently still in the early stages of build-up. At present, stone formation here remains relatively low as preparation continues for further layers and structural development. This section will be one to watch closely, as significant change is expected here as the episode progresses and material build-up advances. At the A28 interface, where the future roundabout will be formed, the site has moved on following the removal of the original site cabins from the early works. A general tidy-up has been carried out, including clearing debris from the ditch along the former tree clearance line. There's also been some light concrete breakout and minor clearance works. The area is now being prepared for the next stage of the roundabout construction. At the south abutment area, stone levels are now up to a considerable height, marking clear progress in the formation of the structure. As that build continues, environmental protection measures are being installed around the edge of the work. A black geotextile membrane is being fixed along the boundary, supported on driven stakes, with a digger assisting in pushing and positioning the material into place as it's secured. This forms a sediment control barrier designed to help retain fine material within the site during ongoing earthworks. At the base of the area, straw bale barriers have also been installed following localized digging. These act as a simple filter, helping to slow surface water and trap any disturbed sediment before it can leave the working zone. Together, these measures are standard practice on sites of this nature, providing environmental protection while construction continues around the abutment area. Across this week, the site has continued to progress across multiple key areas, with visible changes developing from early groundworks through to more established construction zones. At ground level, one of the clearest developments has been the continued build-up of imported stone, arriving in regular cycles throughout the day. Layer by layer, the formation is now clearly taking shape across the main work front, with ground levels steadily rising and previously exposed areas becoming established platforms for ongoing works. Alongside this, increased machinery activity and repeated material movements reflect the growing intensity across the site. At the south abutment, stone levels are now visibly established, showing the early formation taking shape in this section. Compared to earlier stages, this area is now clearly moving forward, with material build-up progressing and structural definition starting to emerge. Earlier in the sequence, attention also returned to the original site setup areas, where the preliminary cabins that formed part of the early compound have now been fully removed. That space has since been cleared and reset as operations transition fully into the main compound, which is now active and supporting ongoing site coordination and logistics. At the A28 interface, early enabling works have continued, including general clearance, ditch maintenance along the former tree clearance line, and light concrete breakout. These smaller scale works form part of the gradual preparation of the area ahead of the future roundabout construction. Drone footage over the wider site and the piling platform provides a clearer perspective of how the different elements are now connecting. From above, the relationship between access routes, working areas, and material placement becomes far more defined, showing the scale and coordination across the scheme. The final part of the journey brings things back down the access route, returning over the completed bogmat bridge that now forms a key entry point into the site. It's a route that has featured throughout the episode and now serves as a clear marker of how the site has developed within this phase of works. Overall, this week has shown steady and continuous progress across the entire corridor, from material delivery and formation works through to site clearance, structural build-up, and wider coordination across multiple work areas. And that brings this episode to a close. Thank you for watching and following along with the progress. It's genuinely appreciated, and I'll continue documenting the changes as the project moves into its next stages.